call this meeting of the Denton County Transportation Authority Board meeting to order. Noting for the record it's 3:20. Paul Pomeroy will give the invocation, and Tom Winterburn is going to do the pledges.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Heavenly Father, thank you for the blessings you've given this agency. We pray for staff, the board, our citizens, our riders, and we pray you continue to look over us and help us do your will. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you.
Jim, you want to make any introductions? Whatever.
I know that we've already introduced Mr. Grimes from the City of McKinney, he's the city manager, and then also Josh, one of our alternate representative from Frisco is here, David and Jim Owen from our ATU, one of our drivers, is here as well. So welcome them, and glad they're here.
You always have an award. Do you have any?
I don't. What is the deal?
It's on paper. Does that count?
You can swing by my office. I've got lots of stuff to rest on my desk.
Anything else there? We'll get
There's a method, I think, that you can go out to a work session, called personal award.
Specialist, yes. From, I don't remember which one this one is.
Talk about it.
Oh, we get so many.
That's horrible. Yes, it's Women in Transport Awards. They have an annual marketing communications award. They call their best transport communications specialist position. And so I was awarded that this year.
Okay, we're down to the consent agenda. Did you finish all of yours?
I'm finished.
Okay, I'll read it off. Consent agenda. Item 1A, approval of minutes for the board work session and regular meeting on March 23rd, 2017. 1B, acceptance of financial statements, March 2017. 1C, acceptance of quarterly investment report, second quarter 2017. 1D, approval of capital project budget amendment, Valley Ridge Railroad Crossing Street reconstruction. Item 1E, approved capital project budget amendment, hotel system. Item 1F, approval of capital project budget amendment, Trinity Mills facility. 1G, approval of capital project budget amendment, fleet 2017. 1H, approval of fiscal year 2017 annual program of projects. 1I, authorize president to execute an agreement for flume repair at rail O&M facility. Item 1J, approval award for the purchase of automotive filters. And 1K, approval of the purchase of small and medium vehicles off the state of Texas contract.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, one question. Explain K.
That is, when we talked about the small and medium buses, we talked about the 8 vehicles that we're purchasing now off the state contract. Originally, we put those out for bid, and we had a non-responsive bidder. And so as an alternative, we were able to buy those same vehicles, or very similar vehicles, off the state contract. And so we've gotten approval from FTA, or checked with them, and that is, and worked through our peer agencies to make sure that was going to work from the federal side, and it does. So we're proceeding. We want to proceed forward with that and need your authorization to do so.
Okay. Is there a motion for 1A through K? You did, I'm sorry. Nice second down here. Who gives a second? Okay. Any further questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposition by like sign. Abstentions same. Motion carries. Item 2, regular agenda, authorize this 2A, authorize president to negotiate and execute contract with the city of McKinney for transit services. McLean.
Yes, we're pleased to bring this item forward. The McKinney Urban Transit District is asked to, that board is established, the district board, desired to provide elderly and disabled service through a combination of taxi cab and demand responsive vehicles. There's an interlocal agreement between the Urban Transit District and the City of McKinney to act on their behalf in terms of actually executing that operation and making that happen. We submitted a proposal to the City of McKinney in response to that request on April 14th. We were able to, just this Monday, the city manager was awarded the authority to negotiate and execute that contract. And we're asking you for that same authority. So we've been selected based on our proposal to do that service. We feel we can do that very well positioned, and start service on June 1st. In order to make that happen, we're working through the specific language of the contract. It will be very similar to, in many ways, particularly the boilerplate to the Frisco contract. That's how we see it right now. Basis for the service is it's primarily demand responsive taxi service through a debit card issue that's done through Irving Holdings. If you recall, a couple months back we did the RFP and you authorized award to Irving Holdings, which is Dallas's, it's Yellow Cab in this region, the biggest cab company out there in our area, and to Lyft. Now Lyft is not part of this arrangement right now, but that's another option that we have in terms of the transportation network companies. And so with that, in order to begin work on June 1st, we need to have a contract. And so our proposal covered all the direct costs, had a 5% administrative fee. The bulk of the work is being done. We will certify people as eligible to ride, monitor the contract, manage all the billing, work through the taxi company to do that, as well as in special cases where it's needed as part of the hybrid service, dispatch demand responsive vehicle, one of our paratransit vehicles, to manage any particular needs that are out there, working with the city to make that happen. So with that, we'd ask for your approval of this item, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions?
I heard
Yes.
one, you said primarily on demand service.
It is all on demand for elderly and disabled, but it is primarily, that demand will be managed through taxi cabs. Okay, so what will happen with that? This is different than we're doing in Frisco. Okay, because Frisco, they asked us to add cabs to the system as a way to expand our capacity. So in Frisco, you call our dispatch center. Either we send one of our vehicles or we call Irving Holdings and say, send a cab to go get Mr. Smith and take him wherever he needs to go. What's different about the McKinney arrangement is that we will certify the same process, and the certification is the same. They have specific requirements. It's a little bit different than Frisco. Frisco includes medical trips. This is only elderly and disabled. And so you get certified, then you, as a user, will contact Irving Holdings and pay, say, $25. And then you will get, or say pay $100, and you will get in return for that, a $400 debit card. You then use that, you call Irving Holdings, schedule your trips, use that card, and pay as it normally does. They charge us an administrative fee to manage all of this process, debit cards and everything that goes with it. We roll that into our the services that we're doing on behalf of the City of McKinney and the Urban Transit District, and that's how we'll deliver services. Very similar to Collin County Rides and how that's set up in some ways, although there's a little bit different format for the contract with Irving Holdings managing the debit card issue.
Are there service standards for this, for them?
We've got to establish some of those in terms of how they're set up, but the difference, the way this works is a little bit different in that this is, from a customer's viewpoint, it's just as if you're calling, it's not a cab through DCTA. You call them as if you were just calling a cab, and what this program does is it provides you the opportunity for payment in those matching funds through the state, the state and local funds in the area that are funding that match. And so, yes.
When's the drop dead date to have this executed? You may have said that earlier on. The
We're
first of
starting
June.
service June 1st, so it's going to be sometime before June 1st. We felt it would be too late to take this to the May board meeting because that's only 6 days in advance, and we actually hope to begin some early testing of this.
Have y'all talked before, or is this?
Oh, yeah.
Have you had
Oh,
your
yeah.
first
No, no,
meetings? So you already have in your mind how this is going to work?
We've got some really, we've already made some good progress on that. Joe Garfita's already got all the base material and the basic terms, and in the next week and a half or so, 2 weeks, we'll be negotiating this and making it come together. Our proposal laid out the terms. So it's really, how do we pay for that, manage insurance, and how do we do billing and things like that. So it's more the mechanism of it, not the basics of cost of the service.
We'll have the same metrics as when you first go through the boarding to the track.
Well, it's going to be interesting because we'll get every month, we've got to track a couple things, right? Because one of the things that we're going to do on behalf of the city is make sure, City of McKinney, is make sure that we track the budget very well. So you actually load debit cards, so there's a commitment of funds at that point, and then there's a report that comes back in how those funds are actually used. So you get the actual cab fare that comes back and is reported with trip information and things like that. So we can track those things, know what's happening, know which person, which card, because that card is linked to an individual, is taking trips and how they're utilizing the service. And then we'll track those two so that we stay on the right path to keeping, so we stay solid on the budget for the year that they've established. So that's part of our job, to do that in a fair and equitable way so that we can keep the riders, good customer service and good service delivery.
So my question to the board is just tutorial, correct?
Yeah.
So what staff person is going to have that responsibility?
Michelle Bloomer is our primary, she's our project manager, works for Raymond. Where's Michelle? There she is. So yes, there's Michelle. Michelle's probably going to be telling me she needs to spend a lot of time in McKinney because she lives in McKinney. So I'm seeing early morning, late afternoon meetings in McKinney. I suspect would be the order of the day, which is okay. That's fine. It's excellent that she's actually very familiar with McKinney, and that's one of the things that I think was part of the strength of what we bring to the table is that commitment to the local community.
So Jim, if I call for a ride, I mean, do they come right and get me, or do I need to give them 2 hours? No, I mean, how do the logistics of that
Well,
work?
it-
And what, I was asking about, I mean, what's on their end to show up and be timely and?
We talked about that from a reality perspective. Actually, inside the city of McKinney, it should be about, we think, within half an hour, 15 minutes normally to get picked up. What we're going to advise, currently the thinking is we're going to advise people to call in 2 hours ahead of time to make sure, because one of the things, you got to remember, it's not just the city of McKinney. It's not Prosper. It's Princeton. It's a pretty diverse, pretty widespread area. So we want to have a consistent message. Now, people will find that they can call at the last minute, and if you're close, and get somebody. And as demand develops in these further out areas, there will be more service available, and so that's one thing. Now, the other is, they have many accessible vehicles. So for wheelchairs, standard ADA vehicles are wheeled devices, and that they can manage those through they have cabs that are equipped that way. We're not going to require they call in a day in the night before, but if you call in the night before, they can schedule that trip to make sure the right vehicle comes to pick you up at the right time. And so they can call, and if one's available right then, they come pick you up, but they're not all set up for non-ambulatory riders. So, but they do have the capacity to do that, and so that's how we would measure it. That's how we'd look and make sure that, and we'd suggest if you need special accommodations that you call, try to schedule it and then make sure that the right vehicle at the right time so that you get the right kind of service you need. And then 2 hours for others. But you can call 5 minutes before you want him picked up. It's just a question of making sure that there's a cab available at that time.
And that's consistent with how we're doing business today in Highland Village.
Any other questions?
And staff recommends approval.
I will tell you that, and I don't want to blow this out of proportion, I would say this even if Mr. Grimes weren't in the room, but I'm really excited about this opportunity. And you may say, well, go ahead and tell me why. I'll meet you at Starbucks sometimes and tell you. But I think this is an opportunity that unprecedented for this organization, and we're gonna make a go at it. I think strategically, it's great for us, and that's all I'm gonna say. So if you want to know more, I'll meet you at Starbucks someday.
I'm in.
Yes, ma'am.
Will this include, you mentioned calling, will it include online?
There's a curb app that they have. Initially, the service, I believe we talked about today, was routing them to a person for dispatch.
Pretty good idea.
Part of what we want to do is we want to make sure that as we kick this off, that we have absolute success as we move forward. So keeping this simple, straightforward, not bringing a whole lot of complicating factors in, and then add to that. Now, the purchase of fare can be done by credit card. They can do it by money order. There's a bunch of different ways. You have a debit card. So those that are not banked, the unbanked population can still purchase these. And one of the commitments we made to the McKinney Urban Transit District in our proposal was to go to McKinney, go to Princeton, to do the initial load of people who would be, to establish eligibility. Hopefully do that on site, real time, right then, and get them to, if they meet the requirements, to approve them and enter them into the system, so that we can actually begin service on June 1st, not begin the process of talking to people June 1st. So probably about the 15th of May, that week, we'll be out. Our folks that do qualification for access service will go and make that happen. And current thinking is that we would actually, if you're certified, issue them a debit card that's not loaded, so they don't have to be shipped that. And then the passenger or the rider then determines what level of, that they want to buy in that with a maximum per month. And then we'll then track through that and then be ready. The goal, again, we set this up before we knew we were selected, I'll confess, because we wanted to be prepared in case we did get selected. We put this on the agenda, and because we knew that we'd have to have it if we're going to make June 1st. So it was good. Who knows, better to be lucky than good kind of things. And so here we are.
Anything else? Seeing none, Chair will entertain a motion on item 2A, which is authorize President to negotiate and execute contract with the City of McKinney for transit services. Is there a motion?
We already have the motion second, just call the vote.
Let's see who they were.
That was the consent agenda. I will,
Eat.
I'll motion to
Eat.
I will motion to
I want
approve.
to sit by him next time.
I don't want to sit between y'all, is what I don't want to do.
Okay.
I'll motion,
We had a motion.
I'll motion to approve.
Was there a second? Okay.
Carter?
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Abstentions? Motions against, or votes against? None? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we're over on item 3, which, do we need to counsel or Jim?
I
Convene into executive
don't
session.
have a whole lot of new stuff. Christina?
I can do a quick briefing if you'd like. There's not a ton of change, so we can wait till the next board meeting.
On the land stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay,
I don't know of anything that's dramatic.
okay, we can wait.
All right. So that gets us down to number 4. Let me mention a couple of things on number 5. Jim, you might help me out a little bit here. Our bills in Austin, our House Bill 1558 and Senate Bill 1179. I think Senate Bill 1179's gone over to the House. It's sitting there now.
And it'll be on the consent calendar for the House.
So it's going to be.
So we're tracking well on that one.
The one, Senate Bill 385, which is the one we've talked about several times, which is the Connie Burton bill that calls for city election for the expenditure of federal funds by transit entities. It appears dormant. Do you have another update?
No. Last time I talked to Drew, that appeared. It's listed as on the calendar for the Senate, but nobody's voting. They're not voting it actually onto the calendar for actual vote. So we're pretty comfortable it's not going to go anywhere.
What is 1179 about?
1179 is the bill we proposed that changes a few of our purchasing regulations in Chapter 460. Most notably, it allows us to do design build for civil projects. We already have it for vertical, buildings, but it allows us an option for rail construction, large civil projects if we ever had that opportunity. That's what 1179, and That's Senate Bill 1179, which has passed the Senate and has been sent to the House. The companion bill 1558 has been before the committee, and it was held pending the item. So there's already been a hearing on it. So now that the Senate bill's hit, it will go straight from the committee to the consent calendar on the House.
Don't other states already have that?
Yeah, most of the other transit authorities have it. It was an odd, when our bill was, and it's, Charles, you can relate the history of this, but Chapter 460 had some very specific language, and for some reason this was excluded, and so it was not added in. So this helps us catch up with changes, and there's some other things that Pete helped us write that allow us to catch back up. It talks about sole source and really codifies a lot of things that we're doing by practice. And there's things that are referenced in the local government code that it allows us to just continue to do business in a more efficient way.
We've had a bill, at least one bill in the last 6 legislative sessions. Skip, you know this, but what happened initially is 460, when it was written, didn't really get us on an equal playing field across the board with other agencies and even some municipalities. And this is just another piece of all of that in terms of procurement. So it's getting to be where that bill parallels a lot of the transit entities now, and certainly our municipalities that we do business with and so forth. So one last thing, Senate Bill 198, which I think is almost dead, but that was the one that was an attempt to exclude from the RTC transit entity memberships. That's been tried about every session, I think, and it's always dies. So that's just a couple of notes there. Jim and I have testified once. We've been down in Austin several times to protect our interest, and a lot of our visits were focused, although we had testified in front of Senate Transportation on the 5th of April. We're always working the rest of our friends down there to make certain they understand what we're about and what our best interests are. So it's pretty well done, and now the rest of this is trying to get through the House and Senate committees and on the floor. And it's kind of coming down to the small end of the funnel now, as I see it, Jim. So hopefully our activities down there will be mitigated to some extent. Any questions about any of that? Okay. Jim, do you have anything you want to offer?
Just real quickly, budget transfers we've already done, and we covered all those, earlier, and action items that y'all have already taken. Regional transportation issues, just one thing I want to thank Raymond and Jeff. We had our enhanced automated train control system, which is our positive train control. There's a user group that's nationwide of people, other agencies that use that. On April 11th and 12th, they met here. And we had the Federal Railroad Administration staff here to help us go through that. So a very positive, okay, I shouldn't say that because positive train control. A very helpful effort in terms of keeping us moving forward on that project, answering questions, being able to collaborate and take advantage of what other people have done. And so very positive thing to do, and we're very happy that we can do that. So.
Any questions for Jim? Did you finish, sir?
I'm done, Charles. And we have no items of community interest.
Anyone else, items of community interest?
Yes.
Oh,
It's early voting. Please vote. About 16% of eligible voters in Texas vote, which is probably
early voting through
sad.
Tuesday, and the election is on May 6th.
Correct. How do you know that?
I just don't know. Truckload full of signs in my right now, so with your wife. So.
Okay, nothing on item 7. Motion to adjourn. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the like sign. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you all very much.
Good to see you again, young man. You noticed that I had some.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, please.
It's my name.